देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Let us pray together. We offer our salutations to the all-loving being who endows all beings with consciousness. We meditate on the Lord, who is the origin of the universe. Lord, Thou art all, Thou assumest all forms, Thou art the origin and goal of all, Thou art the self of all, Thou art existence, knowledge and bliss. Salutations unto Thee. May the world be peaceful. May the wicked become gentle. May all creatures think of mutual welfare. May their minds be occupied with what is spiritual and abiding. May our hearts be immersed in selfless love for the Lord. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Dear friends, here we are now beginning a special service on the occasion of the birth anniversary of Sri Ramakrishna. Today, since morning, we have been observing this special event by many ways of offering our adoration and reverence to this God-man, God appearing in flesh and blood. And now we will have a symposium in which we will have two illustrious speakers participating. I will introduce them at appropriate time, but we will begin this symposium with a prayer, a hymn that is written by Swami Abhedananda. Swami Abhedananda was an intimate disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, brother disciple of Swami Vivekananda, who spent about 20 plus years in United States and was immensely influential speaker. His complete works are, somewhat bigger than Swami Vivekananda's complete works. Because of course the reason is Swami Vivekananda's complete works are really incomplete, because lot of material was not available, it got lost. But the fact is that Swami Abhedananda's complete works filled with very precious, intellectually as well as philosophically high caliber material is there in these 11 volumes of his complete works. And he had composed many hymns which are sung all the time in Ramakrishna Mission. Our daily, worship that happens every morning, the worship to Sri Ramakrishna, the mantra for that has been composed by Swami Abhedananda. And this particular hymn, it is a wonderful prayer seeking the blessings of Sri Ramakrishna, and he says, we are not worthy of receiving it, but out of your kindness, please bless us. And we have very capable musicians to sing this prayer in wonderful tune. Swapna and Rahul, our Sukalyan, Abhijit, Arunim, please come forward, and Abhijit Adek, he will be playing tabla for that. So please come, all of you. And Peter, oh Peter, I didn't know he is also involved in this. Okay, very good, Peter. Yeah, thank you.
1 minute. Excuse me. The Ashtakam. Sri Ramakrishna Ashtakam.
विश्वस्य धाता पुरुषस्त्वमाद्यो व्यक्तेन रूपेण दत्तं हे रामकृष्ण त्वयि भक्तिहीने कृपा कटाक्षं गुरु
Many thanks to all the wonderful and devoted musicians who presented this wonderfully feelingful hymn. I now request the two participants in this symposium to come forward and take their seats. The one closer to me is Professor Gordon Walker. He is Professor of Business at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. And he just told me it is Southern Methodist, has nothing to do with Methodist Church or anything, not religion as such. It is, but the name of the university is Southern Methodist University. He is a very busy professor. He is touring all over the world. Sometimes he is in Taiwan, sometimes in Middle East, sometimes somewhere in Europe. All the time you will find him traveling. And when I suggested to him that, well, you have to participate in this symposium, he looked his calendar and said, I think I can make it. Yeah, I have that slot is open for me. So he flew into Boston last evening, and then right now we have him here. He lives in Dallas, as you see, and how he comes here frequently, that is, well, a long story. I am not going to bore you with it, but he comes here quite often, and he will be giving the first speech of this symposium. Another gentleman, he is a well-known face here. You see him almost every Sunday. 99% Sundays he is here. And for all programs, all functions, you will see him cleaning the shrine area. When he comes on Sundays, he comes an hour before the service and cleans the whole place. He is a very good singer as well, as you must have noticed. And his name is Dr. Sukalyan Sengupta. He is professor not so far away, just about 30 miles from here, University of Massachusetts in Dartmouth. He is professor of environmental engineering. So I first request Professor Gordon Walker to give his speech.
I think I'll stand up. It'll be easier for me.
Yeah, you stand up, but
over here too. Okay.
because
Okay.
otherwise, you know,
And up, isn't that
everybody will
great?
not be able to hear.
Yeah. So when Swami asked me to do this, I thought, oh, no big deal. Just give a talk on Ramakrishna for 15 minutes, and it's not so simple. So it's an honor to be asked. I mean, quite emotional. Many of you know I wasn't in good shape yesterday. So I'm a secular adherent, a secular aspirant, and I hope that what I say today is at least somehow coherent. I have these two ways of thinking about my talk today. One is the written experience of Ramakrishna, and the other is what I call the everyday experience. And the written experience, there are many written experiences, so to speak. There's the Isherwood book, there's the Swami Amatamanda book, there's the Roland book. There are many, but we each only have our own, our own everyday. So they penetrate each other. I would say that without the written, the everyday loses context, it loses substance, it loses kind of its logic. But without the everyday, the written is somehow somewhat abstract and less meaningful. So I'd like to start with both are necessary. I don't think you can simply meditate using the process of the Ramakrishna tradition without actually being exposed to his life in whatever detail makes the most sense to you. I don't think also, and this is a puzzle for me, and I think it's also a puzzle for any non-Hindu or maybe a resistant Westerner when it comes to the Ramakrishna tradition, and that is his devotion to Kali, the Divine Mother. I've been to Dakshineshwar, and I have to say that the most powerful moment for me was walking by that statue. I was there on a puja day, and they gave me 5 seconds. I had a friend who got me through the back door, and I sort of jumped into line, and that was it. I was gone to the Shiva Linga and gone to Bellarmouth down the river in my day. But that statue does have some resonance. And so for a Westerner who's not used to, as I was saying, any kind of worship of an object, even the cross, I mean, it's puzzling. And yet it's hard to understand his life without understanding his devotion to Kali. It's sort of the source of his understanding of himself, I would say, and his understanding of his realization as God in man's body. It was a way of self-explaining many, if not all, of his actions. The basis of his discrimination. Okay. I don't know whether his devotion to Kali was necessary for his spiritual achievements or not, and now I'm looking at Swami because there are scholars who would probably argue that point or discuss it for a long time. The second aspect of his life, which I think is somewhat foreign to Westerners, is his role as an avatar. And all that that means in India, I would say, the Tibetans, I don't think, in their Buddhist tradition, have a sense of, they have a sense of incarnation, but they don't see God and man in a repeated way, the way the Indians do. So the role of an avatar in sort of inducing devotion and also helping mankind become more spiritual is, Christianity, I suppose, thinks of Jesus that way, but it's not a word that they would use to characterize him. So these are two sort of somewhat alien aspects of Ramakrishna, which don't bother me. Nonetheless, they sit out there as kind of extra. Okay, so I have 3 approaches to Ramakrishna which I'd like to go through. One is him as an example, one is as a guide, and one is as a presence. So, as an example, we can start with his incredible austerities. 6 months in thrall, being fed by an itinerant monk when he could get him relaxed enough to stuff some food in his mouth by force. Long periods of nirvikalpa samadhi, which would kill any of us. Going through tantric and Vedantic and Vaishnaic, and I'm not sure how rigorous the Islamic rituals were, but the Tantric and Vedantic were no piece of cake. So for 12 years, he put himself through a series of extraordinary experiences in order to get where he wanted to go. So that's one part. Another part is his devotion to experiencing God and his rejection of what we might think of as false reasons for devotion. One would be cities or powers, and many stories regarding his visceral opposition to anyone who came to him for those reasons, and his use of them as a test, notably to Narendra, what are you interested in, powers or God? And Narendra gave the right answer. Second, he was averse to fulfilling anyone's wishes through him. So any gift that had a wish attached to it, he could feel the wish and rejected it. A third aspect of his example is his Catholicism, his openness to all paths to God. This is a well-known characteristic of his and of his mission. So the realization of Kali, the fulfillment of the tantric rituals, the fulfillment of the Vaishnava rituals, the fulfillment of Vedantic rituals, Islamic rituals, experiences of Jesus and Buddha, and an awareness of where Chaitanya's temple was under the water, his Shodashi worship with Sarada Devi. That's a lot. And it's kind of inclusive. And my guess is that if something else came up, he would probably try that too. So that's quite amazing. And last, his focus on renunciation, strength of character, and focus on transcendence. And his ability to focus his mind on whatever was apparent to him at that particular moment. So just sort of a sense of personal achievement as an individual. So as an example, he's hard to beat. Okay. So as a guide, he was devoted to anyone who was devoted. And let me give you 3 examples, which I kind of like. And they range from the most disorganized individual to the most organized individual. So Girish Chandra Ghosh, an actor and playwright, you may all know these stories, in Calcutta, came to see him wanting to build a spiritual practice. And so Ghosh asked Ramakrishna, what should I do? And Ramakrishna said, just keep doing what you're doing, and think of God in the morning and at night. And Ghosh says, I'm sorry, I can't do that. My schedule doesn't allow me to have a morning and a night. And so Ramakrishna says, okay, well, how about thinking about God when you eat and when you go to bed? And so Ghosh says, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I go to sleep at different times, I eat at different times, it's just too confusing for me. And so Ramakrishna famously says, just give me your power of attorney, which basically means I'll be the way for you. And I don't know why this is so difficult. You set me up on this, you know that. So anyway, and that worked. And Ghosh said, okay, I've got it. If you just let me take over your life, that will be enough. And so that's sort of at the low end in terms of self-organization. So you can choose how far above that you are. I know where I kind of am, which is close to that. Okay, so then there's Hriday, his cousin, who is his factotum, not necessarily and well known, not known to be a spiritual person. But the more he spent time with Ramakrishna, the more interested he became. And so he wanted to have some ecstasy, kind of like, give me some ecstasy. And so Ramakrishna put him off and put him off and put him off, basically saying, serving me is all you need. But Hriday was persistent. So one night they went out, Ramakrishna went out to meditate, and Hriday followed him. And Hriday, this is also a famous story, looked at Ramakrishna and he saw that he was luminous. And Hriday looked at his own body and realized that he was luminous, and it freaked him out. And he started yelling, and everybody got, and Ramakrishna got upset with him because he didn't want Hriday to awake everybody in the compound. So he came back to him, and in one telling of this story, Hriday's in pain because of the spiritual energy, and so Ramakrishna rubs his chest and calms him down and tells him basically to shut up. So, and that's about it for Hriday. I mean, he never, after that moment of ecstasy, it kind of disappeared. So that's sort of an in-between. And at the high end, so to speak, there's Gopal Ma, who was an elderly woman in Calcutta who worshipped Gopala, the child of Krishna, or Krishna as a child, more precisely. And so she became attached to Ramakrishna, and one night in her room, she had a vision of Ramakrishna. She thought he was there, but it was just an ephemera. And the next day, Gopala arrived at her residence, and for 2 months, she played with him. And it turned out that he had been manifested by Ramakrishna, and I think I'm glossing over some of the mechanisms, as it were, of this story when it comes to Ramakrishna and Gopala. But she did see him enter into Ramakrishna's body and come back out again. And so at the end of this 2 months, Gopala disappeared, and Ramakrishna both basically told her that her sadhana had been completed, that she didn't need to do japa anymore, that this was kind of it. And she was upset about that, and because she wanted to continue, but he was fairly clear. So there's the spectrum from Ghosh through Hriday to Gopal Ma in terms of levels of daily discipline, God focus, and so on. And Ramakrishna was there for each one of them in a different way. I think that's important because when you think of him as a guide, you need to understand that he's there for you in the same way. Whatever your life is at a particular moment, I hope this isn't being taped. Turn the tape off. Anyway, so let me just keep going here. So there are two things that I think are useful as a guide. One are the 8 tethers. And they're listed in slightly differently. The 8 tethers are shame, hatred, fear, pride, pride of caste, pride of family, good conduct, and then depending on which list it is, ego, fame, hesitation, secretiveness, grief, and so on. And you read that list, and all of a sudden, and it's kind of what you're facing in meditation. And let me just keep the other sort of spiritual guidance, so to speak, or what he was fighting, and which I fight, are the 5 moods in the Vaishnava tradition: peace, parenting, the role of a lover, friendship, and being a servant. And you listen to those in the same way that you listen to the 8 tethers, and you say, yeah, yeah, yeah. But in meditation, you can see how far off all of that you may be at any particular moment. So these are, I would say, reasonable sort of guideposts when it comes to interpreting, if you're in that mode, what's happening when you're meditating at any particular moment. So those are the sort of the example and the the guide part of Ramakrishna that I think are worth sort of mentioning. As a presence, based on both of those, it's interesting. I mean, he, in the most interesting way for a Westerner, is a constant and calm, attractive, in a way which induces trust and acceptance. And so that's in meditation. I don't know how I'm doing in terms of time. I don't think so great. Okay. The other part of it is outside meditation. So this is the presence part. There's both the in meditation and then there's the outside meditation. And those are inextricably linked. I don't know, although it's obviously happened, that one can realize, one has a realization of Ramakrishna without meditating. I don't know how it happens, but it apparently can, so you're sort of stricken. But for me, I don't want to personalize this in any way, it seems to me that that meditation creates the presence that then can be called upon. Outside of meditation, it's odd. And I won't say is always there, but it's like, it's not voluntary. So I'm not quite sure how that works. Let me just end by saying that Ramakrishna talked about his bite as like a cobra, not like a non-poisonous snake. And I think that's a good metaphor for his insertion into a particular life. It's not something that you can get better from. You're either bitten or you're not, and there's no halfway. So, how am I doing on time?
Well, till I pull your coat, you can continue.
Okay. Oh boy. So, this is my, so I have, outside Ramakrishna's room in Dakshineswar, there's a panel in Bengali. I asked one of my colleagues, one of the benefits of being a professor is I have many international colleagues, and I have many Indian colleagues, and some of them are Bengali. And some of them have better Bengali than others. I was fortunate to have one whose Bengali was pretty good. So it's called Om Tat Sat, the absolute truth. I don't know who wrote this. I don't think it was him, but he inspired it. Conceivably, you can be the judge, Swami can be the judge. The three things in human life we should not have: embarrassment, pride, and fear. That's like the tethers. Worth, pride, compassion for living beings, respect for elders, love for God. Worth, respect, love for justice, humility, equanimity. Worth, praise, helpful to others, good behavior, good company. Worth, happiness, beauty, simplicity, freedom. Worth, love, knowledge, wisdom, dispassion. Worth, disgust, saying ill of others, backstabbing behavior, ingratitude. Temporary, wealth, life, youth. Things that will certainly happen: disease, loss, and death. I like that one. That's a good one. Deliver us from lust, anger, and greed. Things we should give: kind words, forgiveness, good treatment to others. Worth defending: truth, friendship, self-control. Worth removing: it's a big one for me. Sloth, overactivity, and decadence. Worth suspicion: sycophancy, deception, untested friendship. Worth wishing for: health, positive disposition, good character. Worth interacting and living with: a saint, good books, and good thoughts. Scarce things: humanity, desire for higher goals, and the blessings of great men. Worth praying for: respect for God, love, and peace. It's pretty good. Nothing else.
Niranjanam nityamanantarupam bhaktanukampadhrita vigraham vai Ishavataram parameshamidhyam tam Ramakrishnam shirasa namamaha. Swami Yogatmajanandaji Maharaj, friends, let us reflect a little bit as to how Sri Ramakrishna gave instructions to his disciples, spiritual instructions. Now, before we get to the instructions, we have to keep in mind that Thakur was a very selective guru. I mean, in his entire life, which spanned 50 years, he accepted only 16 who would later on become monastics, and depending on how you count, about maybe 28 to 30 so-called householder disciples. So, very selective. And especially amongst his monastic disciples, some of them were, in Thakur's own words, they were Ishvara Kotis, Nitya Siddhas, they were almost perfect. And yet, what is very interesting is Thakur was a very hard taskmaster. And let's take some examples. So, Swami Brahmananda, Rakhal Maharaj, unanimously believed to be Thakur's spiritual son. And yet, one day what happened is Rakhal, he found a coin on the street. He picked it and gave it to a beggar. And he came to Thakur and he said, "Sir, I found this coin. I picked it and gave it to a beggar." And Rakhal felt very good. And he thought Thakur would also be very happy. And what did Thakur say? He said, "No, no, no." Rakhal was stunned. Why? He says, "No, no, no. You should never touch money." Okay, never touch money. And then what is very unique and very lovable about Thakur is his logic. So his logic is, in Bengali it says, "Tui mach khabi na to macher bazare jabi keno?" If you don't eat fish, why would you go to a fish market? Now, what does this mean? What he's trying to do, as we all know, is that ego is the biggest obstacle. And even in such a benign, innocuous act, it does inflate the ego even by this tiny bit, and that Thakur would never accept, okay? Right, another example, Swami Adbhutananda, Latu Maharaj, as we all know, shepherd boy, completely illiterate. He started living with Thakur in that Dakshineshwar room. So Rakhal used to serve Thakur, Holy Mother, do all kinds of errands. One day it so happened that a devotee from Calcutta came to meet Thakur, and something happened. We don't know exactly what, but basically Latu, he spoke very harshly to this devotee. He kind of chastised him. And the devotee left back for Calcutta. When Thakur came to know about it, Thakur was extremely disturbed. He says, "Latu, you should never do that. Don't you know? I mean, these people, these disciples, householder disciples, they live a very stressful life. They come to us for some peace, and this is how you treat them? Go to him and apologize." So Latu, this is about 5-6 miles from Dakshineshwar, and Latu cannot do anything other than walk. So Latu walks 5-6 miles, goes to this devotee's house, and gives his apology, comes back. So Thakur says, "Did you go?" He says, "Yes, sir." "Did you apologize?" "Yes, sir." "Did he accept your apology?" "Yes, sir." "Did you go and give my pranams to him?" He says, "No, sir." So then said, "Okay, go back again." Again, Latu walks 5-6 miles to this devotee's house and says, "I have come again to give you Thakur's pranams." And that devotee now has tears in his eyes, you can imagine. And perhaps most extreme example would be one with Golapma. Golapma, very austere sadhika of the highest order, but she had a problem. She was a loose talker. She would kind of hear or imagine things and she would blurt them out. So this is 1885. Thakur's cancer has been diagnosed. So he was brought to Shampukur, as you all know. And initially, Holy Mother did not come because there were some issues as to where she would stay and all that. So Golap Ma somehow, she got this idea that Thakur came alone without the Holy Mother to Shampukur because Thakur was mad at Holy Mother. Thakur was very dissatisfied with her services, and therefore he left her behind. And probably through Jogin Ma, Holy Mother came to know about this. So Holy Mother, she hired a hackney carriage. She came straight to Shampukur and confronted Thakur. Did you say this? And Thakur was completely taken aback. He said, no, 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 why? How could you even think? And we have to keep in mind that very famous story of Thakur in Dakshineshwar. What happened was that he was in his room and he thought, look, his niece had come. And so when she was about to leave, he told her to close the door. But in Bengali, we have three pronouns for you. I mean, Tui is the one that you say typically to your juniors, and Tumi is the one that you would say to friends or of the same age. So Thakur thought it was Lakshmi, so he said Tui, Dojata bando kore jash. But then he realized it was Holy Mother, and he was so apologetic. He says, I am so sorry, I didn't know. So that was his level of respect. And now to hear this, so he said, okay, let this Brahmin lady come. So the next day Golap Ma comes. So Thakur said, did you say this? And she, of course, realized how stupid she was. And she said, okay, go now, go to Dakshineshwar and ask for her apology. She is Sakshat Saraswati. And if Holy Mother does not accept apology, you have no place here. So Golap Ma, as you can imagine, this is long distance. She's walking all the way to Dakshineshwar with tears in her eyes. So no compromises on that. Now another way Thakur gave instructions is what I call the one comment method. He would make just one comment, very cryptic, very terse, but it left no doubt in the mind of the one receiving it and for successive generations, including us. So this is Swami Turiyananda, Hori Maharaj, very devout, austere, Advaitin. Even as a teenager, he had memorized the Gita, the Chandi, and extremely sincere aspirant. So he comes to Thakur, and in the midst of conversation, the discussion comes about women. And then Thakur kind of asks him, what do you think? And Hari, because he is now fired up with all this talk of Advaita, he says, I hate women. And you can imagine Thakur immediately says, no, 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 hate women? I mean, they are the embodiment of the Divine Mother. How can you hate women? And that one comment, Hari Maharaj says, it changed his whole outlook. Another example, this time with Swami Yogananda. Swami Yogananda also, like Latu, used to stay with Thakur. So one day, Thakur sends him to the market to buy a pan. And Yogananda goes. This shopkeeper befriends Yogananda, says him very nice things, sells him a pan which has a crack in it. Yogananda comes back with the pan. Thakur sees it. Thakur says, hey, you bought this pan which has a crack in it? Now, Yogananda thought, this man is a God man. He is in Murmur Samadhi. Why does he care about crack in the pan? And then Thakur says this one comment, be a bhakta, but do not be a fool. And that, I think, is extremely important because sometimes we get lulled by this feeling, oh, we are on the spiritual path. These things don't bother us. But for Thakur, each thing has its own place. Okay? Another way he would instruct is by challenging his disciples to test him out. And the best example for that would be again with Swami Yogananda. One night he was sleeping in Thakur's room. We heard about the description of that room and the plaque outside from Professor Walker. So Yogananda was a light sleeper, so suddenly he wakes up, he sees Thakur is not there. So he's wondering, at this late night hour, where did Thakur go? And he sees what is called as the water pot of Thakur. So he he knew, he inferred that Thakur had not gone to answer the call of nature. So then the doubt struck in. Is it possible that Thakur went to the Nahabad where the Holy Mother stayed? And then came this, again, this imagination in Yogananda's mind that if this be my guru, I ain't going to accept him. So he walks out of the room and gets to the Nahabad. He's standing in front of Nahabad to catch Thakur red-handed as he steps out. But as you all know, what does he see? He sees after some time Thakur coming from the opposite side, from the Panchvati side. And Thakur, of course, immediately knows why Yogananda is here. As we have read again and again, he could read through people like seeing through a pane of glass. So he immediately knows why Yogananda is there. But what would we expect? Raudra bhava, extreme anger. What does Thakur say? Guru ke dine dekhbi, rate dekhbi, tobe bishwash korbi. You should test out the guru not only during the day but also during the night, and only then should you accept him. So you can see how much conviction he had about his abilities as a guru. Then again, another very minor incident, but it does speak volumes, and that is he would, as you know, he would never touch money. So Vivekananda Naren wanted to test him out. So what he did is he took a coin and kept it under his mattress. And Thakur, of course, unbeknownst to him, the moment he slept on the mattress, he said, "Oh, I get this burning sensation." And then Naren immediately said, "Oh, sorry. I said, no, you don't need to be sorry. I have said I do not touch money. You should test me out." So that, as you can see. Then, of course, I mean, from these examples, you might get the idea that all he would do was give all these instructions all the time. But Thakur also, there are incidences where what we call the roles were reversed. He was not the guru anymore. Let us take a couple of examples. One is Rakhal, Swami Brahmananda. He gets into this trance, this phase where he's deeply meditating. One time it so happened that he was so much into meditation that he kind of almost fainted. Thakur rushed to him, gave him water, fanned him. So you can see he's the guru, but this is what he's doing. And the most humorous example is what is called as the chappal example. So this happens with Latu, Swami Adbhutananda. Latu had this strange idea that in the morning he would see Swami Thakur's face, and only then would he go about doing his other things. The first thing he would do was see Thakur's face. One morning he gets up, doesn't see Thakur around. So he puts his hands before his eyes, comes out to the veranda, says, Sir, where are you? And he hears this kind of reply from a little distance. "Oh, I am here in the garden." And Latu says, "Sir, please come near me. I want to see your face." So Thakur says, "Oh, you stupid fool, I am actually searching for your chappal." He says, "Your chappal?" So Latu again, he says, No, sir, please come closer to me. He says, "You fool, a devotee gave you a pair of chappals. One is in the veranda, the other one I am searching, maybe a jackal took it and put it somewhere, so I am searching for it." So,
What is a chappal?
okay. What is a chappal? Flip-flops, or I'm so sorry. All right. I think we are getting close to the. So now, all these instructions, the comments, okay, they have their place. But what is unparalleled about Thakur was his love for his disciples. And the extreme example of that comes towards the end of his life. Now he is in Kashipur. The body is extremely weak, emaciated. He can hardly talk. So these disciples, what they did is they kind of put him in this room in Kashipur, and he was so weak that he couldn't walk outside to the toilet. So they put a portable kind of a commode in the room. And it was Swami Ramakrishna Nanda, Shoshi Maharaj's duty to clean that commode every day. So one day, this is the winter time, Shashi Maharaj comes to his room, takes this commode, goes outside to clean it. When he comes back, what does he see? He sees Thakur crawling on all fours and trying to get to the other side of the room, where on the wall there was a shawl. And Shashi Maharaj feels so bad that at this state of his body, he says, "Sir, I know this is winter time. Why didn't you just call me? I could have come. Why are you crawling on the floor like this?" He says, No, Shashi, it was not for me, it was for you. Because I saw you going outside in this winter, and Shashi Maharaj just had this dhoti and the other part of the dhoti as his upper garment. So this was for you. So we get some sense of how much love Thakur had for his disciples. And I believe that that love is available to us as well, as we heard in the hymn that we just heard from at the beginning of this program, Swami Abhedananda's hymn. So if I end with the prayer that may we, through our spiritual practices, have that capability of receiving Thakur's love. Thank you.
I convey the thanks of all of us to our illustrious speakers of this evening, Professor Gordon Walker and Shukalyan Sengupta. Professor Gordon Walker very nicely illustrated these three very special strands in Sri Ramakrishna, how we connect to Sri Ramakrishna as an example, and then as a guide and as presence. They are not really three separate, but just to understand, like a rope would have three strands, but they are intertwined. So it is like that. The example was his way of guidance. By seeing him, by acting him, that was how, the guidance would be more effectively imparted. And through these very important sayings, which, as Sukalyan mentioned, that they were very cryptic and yet very effective. It is. So that is how his guidance was. And then the third is his level, that presence. Nothing else as such needed when you have that concrete presence. The scriptures say, Upanishads say, when you have that presence, then all doubts are put to rest automatically. Even in case of one of his disciples, Swami Shivananda, who was known as Mahapurush Maharaj, it was told that if you come in presence of Swami Shivananda, then all the doubts as to whether God is or God is not, all those doubts will just melt away, just go away. It was so concrete a presence of the God realization. God is right here. These doubts that they don't stay at all. That it is just like, say, for example, I am seeing John, and then whether John is here or John is not here, the doubts are just set away. There is no stress of doubt remains because of that presence. So Sri Ramakrishna's presence was of that level for the realization of God. Yes, God is right here. There is no further elucidation, further discussion necessary. So that is how he could have all these three things: serving as an example that how you should lead a spiritual life. And that is the way of all incarnations, as Jesus mentions again and again, that yes, I am the goal, I am the way. That here you see the goal, and as exemplified in his life, you see the way. So Sri Ramakrishna does the same thing in modern times. Sukalyan gave very beautiful examples how he trained his disciples in various ways, and what is this training involved was the points where they had been stuck or obstacled, so those obstacles were just taken out, and then that would serve as lesson for them. Like just he told about it is that you have to be a devotee, no doubt, but in the name of being devotee, don't become stupid. These two, because we confuse these two, that if I have to become a devotee, worldly, these other things, I don't think about it. Well, that is not when you are dealing with, if you don't deal with them, that's fine. But if you are dealing with them, be very clear, very particular. There are so many examples in Sri Ramakrishna's life with his disciples. For example, he was talking about Latu Maharaj Swami Adbhutananda. Similar thing comes in his life. Sri Ramakrishna was going somewhere and then it was duty of Latu Maharaj to carry his things with him for their night stay, all the necessary things. And then Sri Ramakrishna, as they were getting into the cart, asked, "Did you take this? Did you take this?" And he said, "Well, I took this, but forgot that. But it doesn't matter, let's go." Why doesn't matter? Go, get it. Go get it. It will cause inconvenience to those people. Why? And it is just you forget. And he gave his own example that look, when I get into that divine mood, samadhi, I lose the sense of even the cloth that I am putting on. But if I am aware of the external world, then I don't forget any of these things. To become stupid is easy. I mean, most of us don't have to make any effort to become that, but it is. But to become devotee is completely different thing. So it is. So becoming devotee is a different thing. Sukalyan also said that very important idea that how much Sri Ramakrishna's love is for us, for all devotees. It is the vehicle of love that brings the transformational message of Sri Ramakrishna to us. Love is actually the force that can bring the transformation. Intellect cannot. Intellect is a very weak tool. Intellect can bring understanding. Love alone can bring conviction and the force to move in that direction. So therefore, it is intellect, okay, you can understand, but what can actually make you move is love. That is why when all these disciples were discussing, that was after passing away of Sri Ramakrishna physically, that how would you describe Sri Ramakrishna? And Swami Vivekananda says, well, I will describe just one word. And he says, L-O-V-E. That's it. That is Sri Ramakrishna. So friends, let us feel that love on this auspicious occasion, that it is still going on. It has not ceased. Sri Ramakrishna is here and now. Actually, coming Sunday, that is the topic of discussion, that Pravrajika Gita Prana from Ridgely Manor. She will be giving 2 discourses, one on Friday, coming Friday, and coming Sunday. So the topic for Sunday is Sri Ramakrishna right now, right here. He is right now, right here, because that is the spiritual presence right now, right here. So let us try to feel that presence. We will conclude this symposium with a song that the meaning of the song is keep on chanting the name of Sri Ramakrishna. The same artists who had performed the opening song, they are invited to do the closing song as well. A very nice tune. You can join in chanting.
Slides.
Don't have the slides. Huh?
They do.
Then what happened?
It's Ramakrishna Sadaram.
Sada Ramakrishna
No, no.
Ramakrishna Nam Gamana.
Ramakrishna Namagaga. Ramakrishna Namagamana. It starts with R. He's up there.
Yep.
Sada Ramakrishna Ramakrishna Nama Gamana. Sada Ramakrishna Ramakrishna Nama Gamana. Laga laga magan charan mein magan bana jamana. Laga magan charan mein magan bana jamana. Laga lagan charan mein magan bana jamana. Naam gamana sada Ramakrishna Ramakrishna Nama Gamana. अकारण करुणावान, सहज करे नत जन को परम पद प्रदान, वही परम सुख निधान। अकारण करुणावान, सहज करे नत जन को परम पद प्रदान, वही कमल चरण बना शरण तज दे भ्रम नाम नाम। कमल चरण बना शरण तज दे भ्रम नाम नाम। कमल चरण बना शरण तज दे भ्रम नाम नाम। नाम कामना सदा राम कृष्ण नाम कामना। लगा लगा मगन चरणन में मगन बना जामना। लगा मगन चरणन में मगन बना जामना। नाम कामना सदा राम कृष्ण नाम कामना। सदा राम कृष्ण नाम कामना। सदा राम कृष्ण नाम कामना।
So thank you, friends. Tomorrow there will be a discourse on Sri Ramakrishna's special significance to the Western world. And now today's program will be concluded with a chant to Sri Ramakrishna, a rather longish chant called Sankirtanam, Ramakrishna Nama Sankirtanam. And then there will be prasad. So in a couple of minutes we will begin that.